All right, well, I guess I am already recording. So far, this is just a test video. Okay, so to start off, I'm an adult child and I've been in recovery for over a decade. It's best for me to describe my experience in chronological order. So, as far as I can remember, I was the age of 3 years old, and life was peaches and cream. And I had that white picket fence with a mother and father that I referred to as Barbie and Ken because that's the best way that I can put it at that age. I learned to become my mom's best friend, and um, I was heavily involved in martial arts. I was the first student at that studio. My nickname was Little Dragon, and I was highly competitive, and I absolutely love sparring the boys because I was good at it. And if I didn't get first place, then that was discouraging for me. Um, so I guess to fast forward the story, the turning point in my life was when my parents divorced. Um, my mother's best friend, so she says, convinced her to move out and divorce my father, and we were going to get a place together. And the story was that they got into a little bickering argument in the middle of the night. And before I knew it, it was within weeks. That woman, who is my mother's good friend, who also had two daughters, moved in with my father. Well, my mother maliciously, I believe, decided to drop the bomb on me when I was 8 years old and share with me that my father was not biologically my own father and that there was someone else out there that she wanted to introduce to me. And I found out I wasn't an only child. I also had two half sisters. What really broke me was the moment that that woman, my father's new wife, who was my mom's friend, grabbed me by my arm when she was hiding around the corner listening to me talk to one of her little girls in my childhood bathroom, telling her whatever we were talking about. And she felt the need to walk in on us and grab me by my arm and specifically tell me, "You listen here. This is no longer your home. You are now a guest in this home. Do you understand me?" And I just remember tears going down my face. And as an 8-year old, I tried to articulate that situation to my father, but I wasn't heard, and that moment wasn't validated, and that hurt. And before I knew it, my mom married an alcoholic man who's also an ex Marine, and I was living with two dysfunctional sons of his. Um, to fast forward the story a little more, eventually I was about 10 years old. I remember my goodbye dinner with my father and my grandmother, and we moved to Los Angeles. And at that time, I remember having this sense that my mom was going to leave and never come back. And I didn't realize that I was experiencing separation anxiety and abandonment disorders. So, of course, she brought me into therapy, and the lady would sit there and just kind of file her nails and not really pay attention to what I had to say. And I was just another client in her office. Well, eventually, I began to vomit profusively. I had severe diarrhea. I remember having 104 fevers. My mom would put me in the bathtub with ice cubes to try and bring down the fever. And she would wake me up at 5 a.m. and try and get me to eat toast and insures, anything she could to try and get some nutrients in my system, but my body was rejecting it left and right. Um, she told me later on in the year she thought, because at the same time she was pregnant with my brother, which was a miracle because when she was with my father, she was unable to have kids. So she ended up sharing with me she thought God was taking one of her children and replacing it with another, which was my brother. I remember being in so much abdominal pain sitting on the toilet in a home we were living in Castaic, California, and screaming that I no longer wanted to live anymore. And eventually, after doctors accused me of perhaps having an eating disorder, it was a flu, it was a virus, it was gas, it was you name it. I ended up seeing a gastroenterologist by the name of Dr. Larry Eisenberg in Tarzana, California, and he immediately um, diagnosed me with Crohn's disease and found that out through endoscopies and colonoscopies. And I was put on really high amounts of prednisone. And as you may know, children are not very nice. I went from Ethiopian skinny. I have pictures of holding like my newborn brother being super, super, super skinny. And so I went from that state to all of a sudden swelling up in my cheeks and abdominal area from the prednisone. Well, fast forward, um, my mom ended up divorcing that man around a little after my brother was born, and she moved us to um, Grover Beach, California, where my Noni and Papa lived. Um, I'm very familiar with this area. I've lived in this area for the last 20 years and I'm 32. Um, so anyhow, I was on heavy forms of chemotherapy, infusions, ugly medications, giving myself shots, and I could barely make a friend. And when I would make a friend, we would have to pick up and leave. I've been to probably about 11 different schools, and I've felt it very difficult to make friendships with women. Um, I didn't find out until later in life that my mom suffers from some type of narcissistic sociopath mental illness of some sort. I am tired of investing any more energy in trying to diagnose her. All I know is she is not well. And I ended up, I went to AG High for 3 years. And then we picked up and we moved in with one of her new boyfriends at that time. and I had to finish up high school. I had to go to San Luis Obispo High School and finish up my senior year there. At the same time, she decided to start cheating on that man, and I was left without a place to live. I had to go live with one of her male friends and finish up my senior year. So at that time, I was extremely vulnerable, and I started to struggle with depression. And I was infatuated with this man who was 28 years old. I had been infatuated with him since I was about 13. Excuse me as I get comfortable. And I was sexually assaulted by this person. And when I shared that with her, it's a lot. When I shared that with her, she kind of minimized it, and it was just swept under the rug. Well, I didn't forget, and I made sure that I created a Facebook for him, and let's just say it was pretty malicious. And I did everything in my power to try and get back at him. And when I was 18, I ended up falling into substance abuse, and I started to drown out all of the mental and emotional anguish from living in a toxic environment with my mother and all the emotional pain that I was dealing with. And that rapidly progressed from 18 to 21. I declined. And when I lost my papa in December of 2010, that's when I really went downhill. And the anger and the depression um, progressed, manifested, and I was out one evening with my heroin drug dealer boyfriend for his birthday, and I remember not feeling emotionally well that night. And he convinced me to go out, have fun, let's just go. So I put on my stiletto heels and my jeans and my red tube top, and we went out clubbing and we did our thing. And then I remember hearing these girls from high school bickering off in the corner, and I heard my name, and I just snapped. Something inside of me snapped, and I remember being so angry that sweat began to go down the sides of my face. And I took off my stiletto heel and I approached a group full of girls and said, "Let's get it crackin', bitches." Oh, and I got it crackin'. I ended up whacking some girl in the face repetitively with a heel, and my nickname became Stiletto. I'll get to that story in a moment. And that was my bottom, one of my bottoms, I will say. A month later, I was arrested on June 21st of 2011, and my mom was in Hawaii with my brother. Keep in mind that I speak very calmly and objectively about this story because it's just what I've learned to do to cope with it. And so my mom and my brother were in Hawaii, and I was left in jail. And I had my first spiritual awakening that I've ever experienced in my entire life. I was so desperate. I was so broken, and I was withdrawing, and I was tired, and I was outside, and I was doing some little meditation thing where this woman, the Filipino lady, told me to put an intention in my hands, put it in my heart, then put it in the sky. And I remember in that moment, something powerful came over me, and I felt nothing but warmth, love, comfort, and peace, and a sense of knowing that everything was going to be okay. Because in that moment, I realized that I no longer could be the victim of my own circumstances. Um, I eventually got right into AA because I thought that that was what I needed at that time in my life. So I did exactly what they told me to do. I did the step work, I did the deal, I did it all. Fast forward the story. Um, I There was a gentleman in the program who talked me into going back to school when I was 24 years old. And I didn't believe that I had it in me to do it, but I knew that I wanted to do something, and that in order to do that something, it would require an education. So I went back to school and I got an education. And I was in and out of relationships and um, unstable relationships, nothing permanent, and still had this mother in my life. And this little boy, who's my brother, we're 12 years apart, who I feel in a strange way responsible for. Well, in 2014, I remember I was with an ex boyfriend and we were in Hawaii, and I woke up and I had a kink in my neck, and I was like, God, this is really painful. Well, that kink ended up going into my thoracic spine, and I went to the ER and was put on pain medication. So, in recovery, in AA, I've been on pain medication on and off since 2014, 2015, 2016. It goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Um, and the pain progressed. And um, it also was helping me cope with my past and um, get through school. And I don't know, I lost myself in the mix once again. Um, Another turning point was October 31st of 2016. I had, oh, a week before that, I had an epidural in my back for all the pain that I'd been going through. And I remember feeling depressed and discouraged and like, gosh, here we go. I had an epidural and it still isn't doing anything. And I remember walking into the shower, and I can even recall what I ate that night and everything. And then all of a sudden, I started getting my thoughts of intrusive thoughts of like my therapist talking, and then my I hear like my ex-boyfriend, and then the therapist, and then my ex-boyfriend, and then my brain starts to get really, really, really loud and excited, and I start to get dizzy. And I remember going to swarming, and then I go unconscious. And I remember my neck going like that in the shower. And before I knew it, I was coming to, and my head was in the corner of the tile shower that I have where I live here in my home. And the water was rushing over my head, and I tried to get myself up, and I had to pull onto the shower handle because my legs wouldn't barely work, and I couldn't think straight. I thought I had a stroke or something. So I crawled to my bedroom, and I sat in this chair that I'm sitting in right now. And I remember staring at the wall, thinking, I'm not ready to die yet. This isn't my time. I'm not ready to die yet. Then, about 20 minutes later, the thought occurred for me to call my mother and explain to her what just took place. And she didn't think it was that big of a deal, or she was in denial. I don't know. And I felt like an inconvenience to her, like I have felt my entire life. I have felt like an inconvenience to my mother my entire life. And she took me to the ER, and I have pictures and proof of a black eye on this side, a black eye on this side, and I mean, these are huge welts and a big gash across my forehead. I had an MRI, I had CT scans, I had you name it, and there was clouding in the front of my brain, and they thought that it was just possibly to do with the trauma that took place from when I had the seizure in the shower, and I was hoping like hell that was it. And then they threw out the word possibly tumor, and I was like, no, 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 no. This is no, 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 not a tumor. Not a tumor. It was a tumor. It was stage cancer. It was stage 2 cancer, oligodendrite. My mother lacked the capability to suit up and show up to my neurosurgeon appointments. So her boyfriend took me to LA to see the director of neurosurgery, something or other. Talked about my life expectancy. Bullshit. And then my father, who I consider my father, Kurt James Gomes, the father who married my mom's friend, just to clarify, came down here. I'm sorry, I get a little emotional when it comes to this stuff. And he took me to Dr. John Park's office in Santa Barbara. I need some tissues and I don't have any. And when he was discussing what was going on and how big it was, I was in such a state of shock that I was like, You mean the size of a fish? And even my dad and I laugh about that today. I've never walked out of an office and hugged my dad. And that little girl inside just bawled her eyes out. And I held him. The same little girl that's needed him my entire life. He told me it was going to be okay. I'm so grateful for that man. I'm trying to get through the video. I'm just processing a lot right now. So, knowing that I was facing brain surgery, I continued to hold down my 4 classes at Cuesta College because I was determined. I was determined to get into Cal Poly with every bit of strength that I had in me. And the women in AA took me to school Monday through Thursday. I had brain surgery May 21st of 2017. February 17th of 2017, I was about to use my cat as a tissue. That wouldn't be right. I walked outside and we were having like this hurricane, and I was being rebellious and still driving with my car because I was that determined to get to class. Well, that was another turning point. My car ended up getting totaled by a tree. An olive tree on this property, a very large olive tree, smashed my car pretty much in half. A brand new car that I had that my dad got me. And it was under the wrong insurance, thanks to my mother. But I took that as a learning experience to be responsible for my own car insurance because $13K went down the shitter. And that's why I say that all the women in the program continued to take me to my classes. Well, I got through that. An 8-hour surgery. I'm sorry, I'll back it up. May 19th, I graduated from Cuesta College. 2 days later, or 3 days later, I had brain surgery. 4 days later, I was on my feet back in an AA meeting. I had a very loyal friend then, Jordan Ritchie, who he was there with me, giving me rides, just being of moral support. And keep in mind, I'm still dealing with severe back pain, and I begin to, um, I'm not able to go to the gym anymore. I'm not able to wear bras anymore. I'm not able to wear the things I want to wear anymore. I have to wear things like this jacket that I'm wearing. And I ended up getting back onto pain medication, narcotics, heavy Percocet stuff. I took it as prescribed, but I also took it for the wrong reasons because I am an addict. That's also an adult child. Go figure. And the irony of all of it is my biological father, that I refer to as my sperm donor, lives in the same town as we all do. I don't know why. I'll be right there. I'll be right there. Mommy's making a video of a very vocal cat. Um, so I get back on pain medication and I start working for this woman under the table. And I get into different relationships online, and those do nothing but just trigger all of those undealt with childhood wounds. And March of 2020 is when the COVID era began, right? And we've been having to wear masks for almost 2 years now. Oh my God, don't get me started. Well, I have filed for Social Security disability on numerous occasions and have been denied. It's today is October 16th of 2021. I took the quarter off so I could get well mentally and emotionally to the best of my ability, to get my ducks in a row for this disability case that I've been going through. And I am still enrolled at Cal Poly as a psych major. And I have 2 quarters left and I'll have my bachelor's degree. And you better believe I'm going to get that fucking bachelor's degree because I worked a lot to get here. And this 32-year-old body that I live in that feels like it's 80 years old on most days has carried me through this life. And I have had a power greater than myself that I refer to as the Holy Spirit that has carried me through. I've continued to persevere. And one of the most difficult decisions I've had to make in my life is to getting out of denial by going into the adult children program and coming to terms with the fact that my mother is very mentally ill. Very mentally ill. Like, it's scary watching how progressive her mental illness is. And when she's a part of my life, it exasperates all of my symptoms. But October of 2020, I made the decision to. I'm getting tired. It feels like I've been talking forever. I'm probably emotionally drained. I got in with Dr. Philip Delio, who's a neurologist, who talked me into getting off the pain meds. So this month, a year, I have not been on any narcotics for pain. I refuse to touch that shit. And Social Security, I've had to write them a statement. And I've had to do so much work. Much more work than just recovery. I mean, like, being re traumatized by having to go through all of the medical documentation. And this year, I've had a couple friends who were highly concerned about my mental condition and suggested that I go and seek outside help, such as checking myself into psychiatric facilities because they felt that I was not safe. I would never kill myself. But do I have, or have I had suicidal ideation? Absolutely. You damn well fucking believe I have. But I read somewhere it's that anger that's kept me alive because it's the will to live. I have a will to live today. You know, that feeling that I described when I said I had my first spiritual experience and I knew that everything was going to be okay, and I felt this overwhelming sense of peace, love, and comfort. Well, I have this gut feeling that I'm going to be able to advocate for others one day, whether that be children, whether that be people with disabilities, whether that be people in general, whether that be those who are falling through the cracks of our mental health system. Don't even get me started on our mental health system. This has been a really long video, but it's been necessary because it's part of processing. I cut out my mother. I don't know if I already mentioned that, but I cut out my mother of my life. I said, with love, let me be from here forward. And my brother knows that he's welcome to come in to my home anytime he wants. He knows that front door is open. And when he comes to and out of his denial, I'll be here. Do I want to be married one day and have children? Absolutely. But my education is number one at this point in my life and my health. And I get really lonely. And I deal with chronic pain. On that note, I'm just going to say that I'm grateful that I got in touch with the gentleman by the name of Jason Holland from Transitions Mental Health, who can help me navigate my way through the Social Security process, and I reappointed him as my advocate. And I had to write up a statement as if I was speaking to a 10th grader. And that was challenging. It was challenging to not be sarcastic. It was challenging to not let my defects of character, if you will, come out. Because I'm fed up. And I'm fucking pissed off. Like stiletto pissed off. And it's internalized inward because I'm grieving everything. Like my most recent romantic relationship that I feel like shouldn't matter because it was ridiculous. But I'm not going to give up. I've never given up. I've made it this far in life. And I know that the Holy Spirit is going to use my experience to help 1, 2, 3, or a million people. I don't care how, as long as it helps. Because by helping others, I can help heal myself. Which sounds selfish. But if I don't have myself, I don't have anything else. So, on that note, next quarter's internship, senior project. And I'm ready. So let's go.